Hello, friends. Welcome to the LeggLife podcast. My name is Adam.
My name is Sherry.
This is our third podcast episode, Sherry Beth.
It is.
Very impressed with our skills and abilities to continue something through 3 episodes. So this is a little bit, in some ways, of a continuation of the last podcast episode.
Yep, a little bit.
Last one we talked, obviously, about friendships, how to make friends as an adults. And today we are talking about one of our very best friendship resources.
Yep.
Today we are talking all about the Enneagram.
Woohoo.
Now, some of you guys might be saying, Adam, Sherry, what the crap is the Enneagram? Basically, it's just a personality test, right, Sherry?
Yep.
So think of things like DISC, think of things like, what are some of the other ones?
Myers-Briggs.
Ah, yes, those kind of things.
Yep.
The Enneagram is just I don't know if it's newer, it's come to the forefront in the last number of years.
Yeah, I feel like it's a little more accurate, a little more detailed than like the Myers-Briggs.
It's one of the first personality tests, and I've done all of them, right? I've done DISC, I've done Enneagram, I've done Myers-Briggs. It's one of the ones that I read, and I was like, oh, that's me.
Yeah.
Like, nailed it.
Oh, they just described Adam.
Completely. So today what we're going to do is we're going to tell you what our Enneagram number is. And that's kind of the way the Enneagram works, is that there's a series of numbers. You could be a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, based obviously on the way you answer certain questions.
Yep, there's 9 personality types in the Enneagram.
Yep, and so you fit into one of those normally. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll tell you what our personality type is based on the Enneagram, whether we think that it is accurate or not. But then also, how we use the Enneagram, not just in our marriage, but in like other interpersonal relationships, in work things, why we think it's important, all of that. So Sherry Beth has our results pulled up.
I do.
On her fancy laptop. Sherry and I are different in the Enneagram.
Very.
Sherry Beth, let's start with you, but let's talk first about how your Enneagram has hopped around a little bit.
Yeah, so I have taken the test 3 times, and I've gotten 3 different results. And so I kind of feel, and I've taken them at different times. And like, I think the first one I took was a couple years ago, and then I think last year I took another one, and like, I get 3 different results. And so for me, I kind of feel like all of these personality tests, no matter which one you're taking, I feel like it's a little bit based on whatever kind of mood and like headspace you're in at the time, like how you're going to answer these questions. And so I do feel like it wavers a little bit. I don't feel like any of these are going to be like completely accurate unless you're Adam and they just like wrote his description. But yeah, so I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I connect more to the Enneagram. Sometimes I feel like I connect more to like Myers-Briggs. And so I don't really know. It's a little bit wavery for me. I
think also the one thing to remember, and we were talking about this before we started recording, that remember you're normally, again, unless you're me, you do identify with certain aspects or elements of different numbers.
Yeah, like there's really part of me that identifies with literally every single number.
Yeah, and so I'm not surprised that you kind of jump around, but also with you, pretty much every personality test you take, you never have one that is the clear winner. Like, you fit into a lot of the different boxes.
Yeah, and I think that part of that is that I am a chronic overthinker.
Totally.
Like, I overthink every single question. We both just took this test again, just to, like, see where we landed. And, again, I got my 3rd result and my 3rd test. Adam just, like, flew through it. He was just, like, click, 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 click. Like, he can just, like, answer it. And it took me, like, 5 minutes per question. I was like,
Sherry,
where do I fall on the scale? I don't know.
Sherry was analyzing, like, every single question. She's like, but it could be this. But what about this? But on some days it might be this. I'm like, oh, my gosh, overthinker.
Just answer the question.
Is there an overthinker number? If that's it, that's the winner.
I'm a 10. I'm a 10.
Sherry's an Enneagram 10. What's the 10? It's an overthinker because I can't answer the questions.
Right.
That actually should be one.
It's so hard for me. And part of that is, so because of that, like, I know that I am just a complete overthinker on literally everything in my life. A lot of these, so we'll talk about the type that it landed me at this time, but a lot of them are like, you're decisive, and I'm like, nope, for sure not me.
Well, that's what we were talking about, was how, let's say there's 10 things that describe you if you're a certain number. And like 8 of them are just so spot on, like, oh my gosh, that's me. Sherry will focus on the 2 that it's not.
Like, that's not me at all.
I'm like, yeah, but the other 8, like, nailed it. And I think that's important to remember with a lot of these personality tests, is that they're probably not going to get 100% of it right. Even on me.
Yeah, but my analytical mind wants 100% right.
Exactly.
Like, I have to have everything perfect.
We should live stream someday Sherry taking a personality test.
It'd be the most boring live stream ever because it's 5 minutes per question.
I think it's so fun watching you wrestle with this stuff because you would think you were taking the SATs. Like the way that you like struggle with these.
Side note, the SATs completely stressed me out because they're timed. Like I had to.
I'm gonna time your next personality test.
Yeah. Oh no.
All right. So fun. So let's just jump in.
Yep.
And let's talk about the results we got this time. Today. Yeah. Sherry could do this podcast every week and get a different result.
Correct.
But Sherry, you took the Enneagram test today after a 6-hour test that you took.
Sorry.
What results did you get?
I, this time, am a type 5.
Now tell us what, for those of you who aren't listening, or for those of you who aren't listening, welcome to the podcast world. For those of you who aren't sure about Enneagram, what that means, Sherry Beth, tell us what a type 5 is.
It is
and just you know, you guys, we're reading these descriptions from the Enneagram Institute website. So it's just enneagraminstitute.com if you want to go check that out.
Yep.
That's where we're reading these descriptions from. Sorry, go ahead.
Type 5 is the investigator.
Okay.
The intense cerebral type, perceptive, innovative, secretive, and isolated.
How do you feel? We're going to get into like some of the fears, some of the things that it says about a 5, some more deeper stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But based just on that, what do you think?
Well, again, there are 4 words here.
Yep.
Perceptive, innovative, secretive, and isolated. And I would connect with 3 of them.
And the one you would focus on would be the one that you don't think you are.
I don't feel like I'm innovative.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
What would you say?
I would say you're very perceptive.
Yeah.
I would say you're secretive. Yeah. I'd say you're isolated. I think you're innovative in, well, yeah, that's the one that I would identify the least with you as.
Yeah.
For sure. But
in certain things, I feel like I am.
And that's what I was going to say.
When I have the space to be innovative.
Yes.
Right. I'm not innovative in like a hurried situation like ever.
Totally. That's exactly right. So scroll down and type 5 in brief is the next section. So this is sort of like a paragraph description.
Yep. In brief, 5s are alert, insightful, and curious. They are able to concentrate and focus on developing complex ideas and skills. I don't feel like that's true. Independent, innovative, and inventive. They can also become preoccupied with their thoughts and imaginary constructs.
Yep.
Which is me. They become detached, yet high-strung and intense. They typically have problems with eccentricity, nihilism, and isolation.
Uh-huh.
At their best, they are visionary pioneers, often ahead of their time and able to see the world in an entirely new way.
What are the so now we're going into like basic fears, basic desires.
Yep. So the basic fear of a type 5 is being useless, helpless, or incapable.
Do you feel like those are fears that you relate to?
Yes.
Okay. And now the basic desires.
Basic desire is to be capable and competent.
Do you think those are desires you relate to?
Yes.
So I would say I agree with you. When you read to me the description of type 5, I was like, there's a lot of that is you.
Yeah. And I agree. There is a lot, but then there's also things that I'm just like, that's not me.
Here's the thing, though. You said that line, they're able to concentrate and focus on developing complex ideas and skills. You said you don't feel like that's you. I am going to push back a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think it is you, but I think it's you in a different kind of way. I think that when I read that, I think of the fact that if we left you alone in a room with something that needed to be done or something that needed to be like solved or something that needed to be taken care of, and you got to do it in your own way,
yeah.
Like a complex idea, like something, you would nail that. But,
yeah, I rarely can like actually just follow like a preconceived construct.
Right.
Like it frustrates me because it's usually inefficient.
But if you were like in a group setting, it's like, all right, now we're going to develop some complex ideas and skills. Like you'd hate that.
Right. I would blend into the background and not contribute.
Totally. But I think that in your own way, that actually is true.
Oh, that could be, yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of a type 5. So let's talk a little bit more, Sherry. What else you got?
Okay. So the key motivations. They want to possess knowledge, to understand the environment, to have everything figured out as a way of defending the self from threats from the environment.
That is you to a T.
For sure.
That is like Sherry for sure.
Yes.
Okay. This is interesting. Give us some examples. I'm just looking at the screen now. I hadn't seen this before. Just a few examples of people who are type 5s.
Yep. Buddha.
Buddha. Nice start.
Sweet. Albert Einstein.
Interesting.
I'm just going to name the ones that I actually know. Stephen Hawking, Vincent van Gogh. Okay, so like artist types.
Mark
like Edvard
Zuckerberg,
Munch.
Bill Gates.
Uh-huh.
Huh.
Emily Dickinson, Friedrich Nietzsche, Agatha Christie, James Joyce. So yeah, I mean, there's Jodie Foster. I love her.
See, I'm seeing Kurt Cobain on there, and now I'm just like, I've never been more attracted to you.
Cool.
As a Nirvana fan in high school,
right.
I'm like, my wife is the same as Kurt Cobain.
Right.
So
Jane Goodall. Yeah, I mean, like, there's good people on here. Yeah. So where do you think that this actually like describes me pretty well?
I think it describes you well, but here's where I want to go to next, because I think this describes you really well.
Mm-hmm.
If you scroll right down on that page, you'll see it says Type 5 Overview.
Yep.
One of the first sentences there really describes you. Just read that first paragraph.
The very first sentence is like, oh yeah, that's me.
Yep, go ahead.
We have named personality type 5 the investigator because more than any other type, 5s want to find out why things are the way they are.
That, you guys, that is so Sherry. Like when we talk about anything from injustice in the world to the way things work to why things happen in books or movies, Sherry wants to know why it's that way.
I always want to know why.
It's never...
If you want me to do something in this certain way, I want to know why you want me to do it in that certain way.
That's exactly right.
Explain to me why it has to be done this way.
That's exactly right. Well, so that's... okay, so what you just said is exactly why I think, going back earlier, about complex systems and skills. Mm-hmm. Because I think you so want to know why things are done that you will figure out the way to do them.
Right.
So, yeah, yes. I think it does describe you. Keep reading that real quick.
Okay. They want to understand how the world works, whether it is the cosmos, the microscopic world, the animal, vegetable, or mineral kingdoms, or the inner world of their imaginations. They're always searching, asking questions, and delving into things in depth. They do not accept received opinions and doctrines, feeling a strong need to test the truth of most assumptions for themselves.
Boom! This is exactly Sherry. Like,
yeah.
Sherry is the kind of person that if you asked Sherry to do something, or you told Sherry something was some way, she does not accept because I say so as a response.
Like ever.
Because she's like, yeah, but
you can ask my parents about that.
Yeah, she's like, yeah, but no, why? Like why? And actually, I'm gonna brag on you a little bit in this.
Okay.
Because one of the things that I've appreciated the most about you, and I'll use even like our faith, our religion as this. You were raised in the Midwest, mm-hmm. right? Pretty like buckle of the Bible Belt.
Right.
But as you've gotten older, I've watched you say, you know what, just because I was taught this stuff as a kid isn't enough.
Right.
Right? Like, I'm not accepting all of the reasons I was given anymore.
Right. So I have dug and figured out what I actually believe for myself.
Exactly. Because you weren't okay with, well, that's just what I've always known. Mm-hmm. Like, you had to know the why behind everything, including like core beliefs.
Right. And some of those have stayed the same.
Yeah, but some of those
have changed
completely.
Because I dug into it myself.
Yep. And you're like, oh, wait a second, I don't believe this anymore. Or I think this is different. Or I think that. So I think reading Type 5, it is largely you.
Yeah. I actually want to read this next paragraph. Mm-hmm. Because I feel like this is also very accurate.
Oh, let's hear it.
Behind 5's relentless pursuit of knowledge are deep insecurities about their ability to function successfully in the world. 5's feel that they do not have an ability to do things as well as others, but rather than engage directly with activities that might bolster their confidence, 5's take a step back into their minds where they feel more capable. Their belief is that from the safety of their minds, they'll eventually figure out how to do things and one day rejoin the world.
Okay, so I'm going to try to not be a counselor here, right? Because this is where I really want to
Pastor Adam's going to come out.
I know, this is where I really want to like step into this, and Preston's like, oh, tell me about that.
No, but I do feel like this is really very true of me, because if I can't figure something out immediately, I retreat.
Yep.
I isolate and I noodle it in my head until I figure it out.
That's exactly right.
Like, I very rarely will go to other people and say, how do I do this? Can you explain this to me? I will sit there in silence and I will figure it out.
This is one of the, and we're going to talk about more, we're going to dive deeper into this a little bit later about how we use Enneagram kind of in our relationship. But I will say, just kind of touching into that now, one of the reasons this is so helpful for me to know about Sherry is that I'm very different in this. Mm-hmm. And I know that if Sherry and I are discussing something that is important or deep or even heavy and weighty, that Sherry needs not just space and margin and time to process this. But like, I need to step back, right? She needs to do this in her own way. Sherry is not all right, we're going to sit down, we're going to figure this out right now, we're going to solve this.
We're going to hash it out.
We're going to have, Sherry is not a hash it out kind of person.
Nope.
Like, Sherry is you know what, let's discuss this one night and give me a couple days because, like, I need to process this.
I will let you know when I'm ready.
And I will let you know when I'm ready. That's exactly right.
Right.
And so that's helpful in our relationship.
Yes, and it's not just in, figuring out, like, I don't know. For me, it's also, like, when we argue about things.
Mm-hmm.
Because I am not a quick thinker.
Yep.
And, like, when in the middle of an argument, when my emotions are high especially, I have got to take a step back and actually process and be able to figure out a response.
Yep.
And, like, how to address it.
And that's why some people are like, don't let the sun go down on your anger. And that's a Bible verse. I don't know exactly how to take that, but here's what I'll say for our relationship. One of the very best things we can do sometimes is let the sun go down on like, not our anger, but on an argument.
Right.
We can address it and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We're not going to solve this today because I know that's not how Sherry works. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to kind of start the process, but it might be a couple days before this, like, process ends, because that's the space that Sherry needs.
Right. So we are good about, like, if we are arguing, especially in the evening before bed,
Yep.
we will always say we love you.
Totally.
And so we don't let ourselves, like, go to bed in anger.
Yeah.
But, like...
Yeah, we're never pissed off at each other.
Right. But it rarely do we complete an argument.
Oh, completely. Yeah,
like,
no.
the same day that it was started.
Absolutely not.
Because I need time to process, and I need time to, like, figure out where I stand.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep, so that's helpful. And again, we'll talk more about that here in just a little bit. But Sherry, a type 5, I think that's largely you.
I think so, too. So the other types that I have gotten are a 4 and a 6.
Yep.
A 4 the first time I took it, a 6 the next time, and then this time a 5. And I do feel like I relate more to 5 than 4 or 6 in whole.
Well, here's what's interesting, and we're not going to talk about this in this episode because this gets a little bit deeper in Enneagram, is there's this thing called wings. And a wing is kind of like you have your dominant number, which for Sherry taking the test this time would be a 5, and then the wing for Sherry would be either a
4 or a 6.
4 or a 6.
It's whatever number is beside you. So you can't be like a 5 wing 9. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
So it's a wing 4 or a wing 6. And like he said, we're not really going to, like, dive deep into that, but it does describe your personality a little bit more.
Yeah.
If you couple it with one of the other numbers next to you.
There are elements of you in those numbers is kind of the idea. And so it's interesting to me that you've taken it 3 times and you got a 4, a 5, and a 6.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, all potential wings of each other.
Right.
So that's kind of interesting. So that's what Sherry is. Sherry Beth.
Let's move to you.
Let's move to me. Now, my test results are different than Sherry's in that every single time I have taken the Enneagram, I have gotten this number off the charts.
Right. Like, not even really close.
And in fact, other people, and I'll tell a story about our friend Amanda one time. It's one of my favorite stories about my number. But Sherry, you have the laptop. You have the power. What the heck am I?
You are a 2.
I am the 2est of 2s.
The 2est of 2s. I really feel like they looked at Adam and they dissected his personality and they're like, that's how we're describing a 2. It wasn't that we're taking a 2 and describing Adam. We're taking Adam and describing a 2.
It's so funny. Okay, well, tell people what in the heck a 2 is.
The helper.
Okay.
The caring interpersonal type. Generous, demonstrative, people-pleasing, and possessive.
What do you think about those?
I definitely 3 of the 4. I do feel like you're a people pleaser, but I don't feel like that's ever, like, your motivation, because I think that your motivation is always what's going to be best for the greater good.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense.
And if, like, you're not going to do something just to please one person, like, ever.
True. Read the type 2 in brief.
In brief, 2s are empathetic, sincere, and warm-hearted. They are friendly, generous, and self-sacrificing, but can also be sentimental, flattering, and people-pleasing. They are well-meaning and driven to be close to others, but can slip into doing things for others in order to be needed. They typically have problems with possessiveness and with acknowledging their own needs. At their best, they are unselfish and altruistic. They have unconditional love for others.
It's, you guys, it's so, like, I don't think there's anything I disagree with.
The sentimental. I don't feel like you're sentimental about
Specific things.
specific things like people
Yeah.
and things pertaining to people, but you are not sentimental when it comes to things.
Oh, not specific things. That's true. I'm sentimental when it comes to people and events.
Yes.
Right? People and events, but not like possessions.
Right.
Totally true. So my basic fear
Your
of it as an Enneagram 2 would
your
be...
basic fear is being unwanted, unworthy of being loved.
Nailed it. 100%.
Basic desire is to feel loved.
100%.
Key motivations.
Uh-huh.
You want to be loved, to express your feelings for others, to be needed and appreciated, to get others to respond to them, to vindicate their claims about themselves.
My gosh, that is this, you guys, this is so me. Like, it's ridiculous.
It's really funny. So let's talk about people that are also 2s.
Perfect.
Again, I'm just going to name the ones that I actually have heard of.
Mm-hmm.
Pope John the 23rd.
Okay.
Which, why are there so many? Eleanor Roosevelt, Nancy Reagan.
Yep. John Denver, Lionel Richie, Stevie Wonder, Dolly Parton, Josh Groban. And then I like it that it says the music of Journey. Can we just stop right there? I'm like, that's me. Again, I don't necessarily know why the people that are like you matter, because I like don't know. I know their music.
I think it's just interesting.
I think it's talent level. They looked at me, they're like, that's a Josh Groban. That man's a Josh Groban. No, not that. Probably not.
You love me some Josh Groban.
Type 2 overview. Tell me this, Sherry Beth.
We have named personality type 2 the helper because people of this type are either the most genuinely helpful to other people, or when they are less healthy, they are the most highly invested in seeing themselves as helpful. I think that's interesting. I'm going to pause right there. When they are less healthy, they are the most highly invested in seeing themselves as helpful. So totally. I think that if you're not in a healthy headspace, you will do things to be perceived as helpful.
That's right.
Whether you're feeling that or not.
Totally.
Moving on. Being generous and going out of their way for others makes 2s feel that theirs is the richest, most meaningful way to live.
It's true.
So there's a little arrogance in there.
Oh, totally.
The love and concern they feel and the genuine good they do warms their hearts and makes them feel worthwhile. 2s are most interested in what they feel to be the really, really good things in life. Love, closeness, sharing, family, and friendship.
That is the most true thing. Like, 2s are most interested in what they feel to be the really, really good things in life. Love, closeness, sharing, family, and friendship. Yeah. To me, if I had a life with just that stuff, I'm good. Like, life is good. So yeah, 100%.
Like 1,000%.
Like 1,000%. Right. That is so me. Let's talk a little bit about that. The paragraph there says when 2s are healthy and in balance.
Yep. When 2s are healthy and in balance, they really are loving, helpful, generous, and considerate. People are drawn to them like bees to honey. Healthy 2s warm others in the glow of their hearts. They enliven others with their appreciation and attention, helping people to see positive qualities in themselves that they had not previously recognized. In short, healthy 2s are the embodiment of the good parent that everyone wishes they had. Someone who sees them as they are, understands them with immense compassion, helps and encourages with infinite patience, and is always willing to lend a hand, while knowing precisely how and when to let go. Healthy 2s open our hearts because theirs are already so open, and they show us the way to be more deeply and richly human.
Yeah, I think a lot of that does describe me.
Yeah.
I will say, and this is important to remember, that each personality type has both unhealthy and healthy sides, right? So we just talked about the healthy side of what it means to be a 2, but let's move down a little bit, Sherry, and let's talk a little bit about kind of what happens with an unhealthy 2.
Yep. However, 2's inner development may be limited by their shadow side. Pride, self-deception, the tendency to become over-involved in the lives of others, and the tendency to manipulate others to get their own emotional needs met. Transformational work entails going into dark places in ourselves, and this very much goes against the grain of the 2's personality structure, which prefers to see itself in only the most positive, glowing terms.
Yeah, but you know what's interesting is that I have found that to be true about myself, that I tend to be a very positive, very helpful, very caring, kind of compassionate person. But I think the shadow side is such an interesting way to define that. Because if I'm not that, I don't necessarily go to like a gray area. I go to like that dark area. I'm trying to see how transformational work entails going into dark places in ourselves.
Yep. And so average to unhealthy 2s seek validation of their worth by obeying their superego's demands to sacrifice themselves for others. They believe they must always put others first and be loving and unselfish if they want to get love.
Yep.
The problem is that putting others first makes twos secretly angry and resentful, feelings they work hard to repress or deny. Nevertheless, they eventually erupt in various ways, disrupting twos' relationships and revealing the inauthenticity of many of the average to unhealthy twos' claims about themselves and the depth of their love.
Well, it's one of the reasons that, like, I struggle with this, that as a two, I tend to be a very giving person, right?
Mhm.
Like, I tend to be very, like, accommodating to others. And when that isn't returned,
Right.
when I go to an unhealthy place, what I do is I'm just like, oh, okay, so you don't care at all about me.
Right.
Right? You know what I mean? So, like, the pendulum swings. It's like, in some ways, I do these things because I want to, and, like, that's how I get life, and that's what I genuinely love serving and caring for others. Like, it is my favorite thing in this whole world.
Right.
But, like, when I go to an unhealthy place, there's something in my brain that switches and that flips, and I'm like, if I'm not getting that back, then
You hate me.
screw you.
Right.
Right?
And we've seen that in our marriage
100%.
because he gives and gives and gives, and when I don't give in the same way back,
Yep.
he gets angry and frustrated.
That's exactly right.
And he feels unloved.
That's exactly right.
Which is not true, but that's just when he allows himself to go to that dark place.
Well, let's talk about this. I think this is a really good transition into kind of why this stuff matters.
Right.
Right?
So
and how we use this.
Right. And so between the two of us, I tend to live in that dark place and overanalyze and overthink, and I am always in my head, trying to figure out where I land on this, how I feel about this, what I'm going to do about it, like how I'm going to fix this. Like, this is a
That's
constant
true.
mental thought, like mental train of thought in my head, always.
Yep.
And it's not for him because his mental train of thought is, how can I be helpful? How can I love? How can I give?
Yep.
So when we not even switch places, when he gets into my kind of headspace, he doesn't know what to do with it.
I have no clue.
Right.
It's so foreign. It is like I feel like a completely different person. And if you guys remember, I even talked about that in some of our vlogs about how, like, our Florida trip, and just even like the end of 2020, I was there for like several weeks.
Yeah, a couple of weeks.
And I don't know it's so foreign to me that I don't know how to act and I don't know how to operate, because I genuinely feel like, to my soul, to my core, that what I'm experiencing is just so not me.
Right.
Right? And so I'm just like, wait a second, like, this isn't who I am at all. Like, but I don't know how to get out of it because it's so foreign. It's like I'm stuck in mud.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, that's my entire life.
Well, and that's what's so crazy to me, is that I have to remember, and this is why this is so helpful, and this is why we retake the Enneagram test often. This is why we talk about this stuff, is that knowing that that is Sherry's reality helps me know how I can care well for her, helps me know how I can encourage her, helps me know the kind of person I need to be in her life to help her be who, like, I believe God created her to be.
Right.
Right? Like,
and vice versa.
Oh, 100%. Completely. It works both ways.
Yep.
And so, to me, knowing that, just like what Sherry said, that that's kind of where she lives, I know that there's times that I need to, like, step in and just, like, be an encouragement to her. But more than that, not try to solve the problem, because that's never helpful to Sherry.
Right. I rarely go to him with a problem wanting a fix, because
That's right.
I need to figure it out for myself.
Because that's your personality.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And so usually when I go to him with a problem, it's just a soundboard for me. Like, I just want to include him in my thought process.
Yep.
I don't need him to add to that.
Yeah, we've even said that in different discussions. Like, I'm not asking you to fix this.
Right.
Here's what I need from you right now. Right? So, like, I'm not asking you to fix this. Here's what I need. I need you to listen to me. I need you to hear me. Like, I need you, that kind of stuff.
Right. Sometimes, because my brain is just a big muddy pit of despair, I sometimes I just need to verbalize things in order to figure out where I'm at on it.
Totally.
And talking to myself is just weird. And so I will talk to you. And again, I rarely need an actual, like, help with that. I just need to verbalize it, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I know where I'm at, I know where I need to be now.
But you guys, imagine this. I'm a 2.
He's a fixer.
I'm a fixer and a help. More than a fixer, I'm a helper.
Right.
And so Sherry comes to me. She's like, "Okay, here's what's going on." And
Here's
I start getting so excited inside because I'm like, "Oh my god, I get to help. I get to help. I get to help." Like a puppy. I'm like a puppy, and I'm so excited because we're gonna get
that dog.
Can I pet that dog? Because like we're gonna get to play, and I'm gonna get to help. And I have to ratchet back who I am.
Right.
Because it's not helpful to who Sherry is.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like I don't get to be my 2-ishness in that moment because it is not helpful to Sherry as a 5.
Well, and I don't even think that it's really suppressing who you are. I think that it's tapping into a different side of it because
there you go. That's good.
Because you are still being extremely helpful.
Not in the way I naturally would be.
Not as a fixer, but you are helpful in that I just needed somebody to talk to.
Totally.
And so you're still being a helper.
Yep.
You're still helping me through my problem. It's just in this instance, I just need your silence to help me through my problem because
that's right.
I need to figure it out. I need to process it in my own way.
And it's not just in a marriage relationship. I really love knowing what Enneagram our different friends are.
Yep.
I love knowing what Enneagram all of my employees are.
Yes.
That to me is so helpful because with Enneagram or personality tests, people hear things in different ways. I can say one thing, but it falls on the ears of a 2 different than it falls on the ears of a 5, right?
Right.
So I need to know, or maybe not need to know, it's helpful for me to know.
Right.
That kind of thing.
Yes.
Because then I know how this person might take this, how this person might hear this, how this person might...
How to phrase things so that they understand.
Yep.
And like in their own way. So my boss and I have talked about this too. She really wants to know all of, the employees of our company, like where they are, because you can be talking to a group of people and there's going to be, 6 different types in there.
Yeah.
And so she needs to phrase things either in multiple ways or in a way that everybody will receive it the way that she's needing it to be received.
That's right.
But everybody's going to hear that differently.
Yep.
She's saying the same words in the same tone to everybody because they're all in the same group, but they're going to hear it 6 different ways.
Well, and I found as somebody who's been an employer for a lot of people, there are certain personality types that if I have a specific conversation like with a staff about something, I know that I need to go to all of the 5s after this is over and just make sure they heard. You know what I mean? Like, I know that sounds crazy, but it's like, hey, I know that was kind of a hard meeting. I want to know what you heard me say.
Right.
Because if I ask a 2 that or ask a 5 that, I actually get different responses.
Right.
I said one thing.
Because 5s are going to internalize and probably take it as a personal affront.
That's exactly what it is. And that's exactly where I was going, Sherry.
And you never mean that.
Nope, not at all.
That's how our brains work.
100%.
Right.
And so that's why this stuff matters so much. We use this stuff all the time in our marriage, and not just Enneagram, a lot of the different personality tests. I know, like the 5 love languages is another one. Sherry, off the top of your head, just quick squirrel. Do you know what your love languages are?
I think gifts and probably words of affirmation.
Do you know what mine is?
Words of affirmation.
Well, that's not my biggest one.
Physical touch.
Yeah, 100%. I'm a physical touch and then words of affirmation person.
Physical touch is probably my lowest.
Well, so, okay, let's talk. That leads me into another thing with this personality thing.
Right.
Is, okay, now we have in a relationship where my greatest need, I would say, is physical touch.
And my least greatest need
is physical touch.
Right.
And so, like, how the hell do you figure that out?
Right.
And that to me is why communication in this stuff is so important. That's why I think ongoing talking about this stuff is so important. We talk about things like this all of the time.
Yeah.
Like all of the time. And we have constant check-ins about like, hey, how is this going? How is that going? And there are some areas.
How can I improve?
How can I improve? There's some areas that are like a constant battle.
Yep.
Just like absolutely all the time. Constant battle. It feels like banging our heads against the wall, probably on both sides.
Yeah.
But we keep going.
Right. Because we are just on opposite sides of so many of these kinds of issues.
Yep.
And so he feels very unloved when I don't do this and this and this.
Yep.
And I just feel like he's just the neediest person ever.
Exactly.
Which is not true.
Yep.
That's just how he receives love. And so it's just... Yeah, I mean, it's getting outside your own comfort zone and being the person that you need to be for that person.
Well, and that's where, like, again, this probably maybe an Enneagram too. Like, I always think about others in a situation. Like, what does this person need? What does this person want? What does this person need? Right? You know what I mean? Like, that's my primary first thought.
Right.
Like, when we talk about where to go for dinner, and I'm just like, oh, wherever you want. I genuinely mean that. Like, it sounds funny, but to me, like, what would bring me the most joy is for Sherry to have whatever food she wants in the moment. The problem is normally she's like, no, I don't care.
No, and so he says he doesn't care because he generally wants to go to the place that I want to go to most. I am a chronic overthinker, and I'm like, I cannot make this decision. Like, I cannot say what I want for dinner because I don't know.
That's right.
Like, if we need to figure this out in the next, like, day or two, it's not going to happen. Like, I am going to overthink, and I'm going to be like, this sounds good, but that doesn't really from that restaurant, so maybe this sounds better, but then this one sounds better. Like, my brain cannot, like, it short circuits when he's like, just make a decision.
I so badly want to give Sherry what she wants, and Sherry so much has no idea what she wants because she overthinks everything.
Right.
Oh my gosh. Welcome to LeggLife, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to LeggLife.
Oh my goodness.
Sherry Beth, any other thoughts on Enneagram? Any other Enneagram tips, or I don't know, what are your thoughts?
For me, I think that it's helpful to know where your friends are because, again,
Absolutely.
like, knowing how you can be the best friend to that specific person is super helpful. Because, again, you know, when it comes down to personality types, I know that Adam is going to receive something differently than this other friend or this other friend. And so I can't treat everybody the same.
Yep.
And I think that in order to be a good friend, you need to know how to respond to your friends.
Yeah. I think one of the best things you can do as a friend is figure out the personality types of those around you, and then figure out, like, the things that make them feel loved, the things that make them feel seen, the things that make them feel known, the things that, like, what are the ways that you as a friend, again, I sound like such a two right now. What are the ways that you can really serve and understand your friends and who they are, not expecting them to serve you all the time.
Right. And I'm going to just rabbit trail a little bit, but it is still connected.
Yeah.
I think this is very connected to gift giving.
Ooh, let's hear it.
We have talked about this on our vlogs. Adam is an excellent gift giver. And I think that relates back to him being a 2.
Interesting.
And knowing, like, just kind of having this innate sense of how to help people and what to give them what they want.
Huh.
And I am a terrible gift giver because I overthink everything.
You overthink everything. That's interesting.
And so I get into my head, and I can usually figure out a decent gift if I have, like, months to think about it.
You need to start Christmas shopping in September.
I need to start Christmas shopping in January.
We should just leave the tree up then. Sorry.
Oh my gosh. It is still up.
That's true.
And yeah, like, it's so hard for me because I want to, like, with every cell in my being, I want to give this person something that will mean something to them.
Yeah.
And that they will actually like. And I overthink everything to the point where I will either just not give them a gift, or I will just be like, just whatever, just buy them this. I don't care. Like, because I cannot get my brain to actually, like, decide on something.
That's really interesting. I'd never thought about gift giving from the Enneagram.
Mm-hmm. I think that's why it's so hard for me.
It makes so much sense.
Mm-hmm. Because I overthink everything.
Can I end this podcast by telling one story? It's an Enneagram 2 story.
Okay.
Our friends Ben and Amanda, you guys know, apparently we're just going to talk about them every podcast because we love them so much. So Ben and I, and some other buddies, went to Austin City Limits in 2019, back when the world still allowed things like Austin City Limits to happen. And I flew in early. I was actually in Texas early for work. And so I was picking Ben up at the airport. And I texted Amanda. I was like, hey, is there anything that Ben likes? Is there anything that Ben would, like, love to have that I could get in advance to have for Ben that would just, like, bring him joy and make him happy? And Amanda told me...
And as an aside, that wouldn't even occur to me.
I was going to say...
like, I'm just going to pick him up from the airport.
The most Enneagram 2 thing. I'm like, I get to see my friend that I want to have gifts for him. And so Amanda was like, there's this energy drink that he loves called Zions. But it's not readily available everywhere. And so I'm like, Dope. I had most of the day. Okay, so
Right.
like Ben was flying in the evening. I had that whole day free. And so in the morning, I start my search for Zions. I'm in Austin, Texas.
And he's thinking I'll just go pick some up, and then I have the day to like
Kill
bum
the
around, do
totally
whatever.
like kill time, do stuff. And so I go online and I'm searching for Zions and I find one store that looks like they have it. I go there, they're like, oh, we actually don't carry that anymore. And I bet I ended up going to 7 or 8 stores all around the Austin area. And every single store, they don't have it. They don't have it. They don't have it. Like, I'm looking up, you guys, everything I can find. Like, I'm on message boards. I'm on websites. I'm calling stores. And I can't find it. And I'm genuinely getting, like, soul level bummed that the thing that would bring my friend happiness, I'm not going to be able to give him. Right? Like, that's where my mind's at. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I go to the Austin airport to pick him up. And I get there early. And at the Austin airport, there's like this little, you know how sometimes at airports there's gas stations right there on airport property if you're like fill up your rental car, that sort of thing. So I was like, well, I'm just going to pull into this gas station and I'll wait here until Ben texts me that he's landed, then I'll go pick him up. So I pull into the gas station. Now, I have spent 7 or 8 hours driving around Austin, Texas, going to as many stores as I possibly can, trying to find this one thing for my friend that'll bring him joy. Can't find it. So I'm sitting there in the parking lot of the gas station. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to check one more time. I'm just going to go in because I have to try. I'm a 2. I've got to do it. And I go in and I find Zions in the gas station at the airport. And the amount of happiness and pleasure I felt knowing that my friend was going to have his drink made me so happy. So I bought a bunch of them. But it was funny because during the day I was texting Amanda. I'm like, I tried here, I tried there. Where do you guys normally find it? That kind of stuff. And Amanda texted back at one point during the day, and we had never talked about Enneagram with them. She was like, hey, you're an Enneagram 2, aren't you? I was like, yeah, why? And she was like, you spent the whole day trying to find an energy drink because you knew that it would make Ben happy.
Right, it's literally, you stopped at every store in the state of Texas trying to find this one drink.
You guys, I bet I spent 6 or 7 hours that day driving, trying to find that for my friend.
Keeping in mind that it wouldn't even occur to me to do that.
No, you'd be like, what time's your flight in? Great, I'll be there.
Cool, I'm going to read until then.
Yeah, I'm going to read till then. That's exactly it. But it's like, for me, I was like, nope, there's one thing I can do for my friend that will make him happy. I will move heaven and earth to do that. Oh my gosh. It's the most Enneagram 2 thing maybe that I've ever done. Mm-hmm. So friends, that's our Enneagram conversation. We love the Enneagram.
We do. Yeah. And again, for me, it's so hard to really say that I love like one thing over another because there are pieces of Enneagram that I don't agree with. Mm-hmm. There are pieces of Myers-Briggs that I don't agree with. But overall, I think that Enneagram to me is the most accurate and the most detailed. Yep. Like they give you like this whole page of instances and examples that will kind of relate to you or not.
Yep. I think it's helpful. Again, we've talked on it. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we use it all of the time in our marriage. We use it all the time in our relationships. We use it all the time when interacting with people and employees and employers. So Enneagram, we're fans. Yep. Now, Sherry Beth. Yeah. We end our podcast asking 2 questions every single week. Yeah. Those questions are, what is something that has been bringing you joy lately? Mm-hmm. Or who is someone that has been inspiring you lately?
And because we were talking about the Enneagram, I'm just going to insert this here. These are very Enneagram 2 questions. And they stress me the heck out.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
An Enneagram 5 question would be like, what is bringing you despair lately? What?
No. Any open-ended question stresses me out. Any open-ended question, which is why I struggle with the test itself.
Very interesting.
Because it's so hard. Like, give me a yes or a no.
Have you been inspired lately?
Probably.
Has something brought you joy lately?
Probably.
Boom, you guys Sherry answered the questions. I'm just kidding. But
it's so hard for me to like narrow it down to like one thing or like that's just not how my brain works.
Well, because, and this is interesting, that when I say is something been bringing you joy, you don't want to just say one thing. You want to ensure that the thing you say is the top answer.
Right, like, but I don't know what that top answer is. It stresses me out.
That's exactly right. So, oh my gosh, I never even thought about these questions as Enneagram 2 questions. Do we need to scrap this from the podcast?
I don't know. I think that it's good for me to try to make a damn decision, but it's so hard. It really is.
Also, just so you know, this is a good time to spike this. Our YouTube channel is very family friendly. Our Instagram lives are a little bit less. Our podcast will probably include language most weeks, so maybe not something to listen to as a family.
We'll try to keep it mostly clean.
We try to have Sherry do most of these podcasts moderately sober. Moderately sober to keep the language down.
I should probably be less than sober if I want to be able to answer some of these questions.
That is true. Okay, so do you have an answer for either of those questions this week?
Oh, sure. I think
I feel so bad because I totally came up with these questions, you guys, and I was so proud of myself. I was like, Sherry, this can be such a great part of the podcast.
I know. He was so happy. He's like, we really have to do this. And I'm just like panicking inside. My entire brain is like short-circuiting.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so I'm going to say that these podcasts have actually been bringing me joy.
Really?
They've been a lot of fun, and it's fun to kind of deep dive into some of these. And again, like, these are all conversations that we have had just between the two of us and sometimes with other friends.
Yeah.
But it's fun to actually have them kind of recorded because, like, I really don't think that we've said anything new aside from me pointing out that your questions are very much Enneagram 2s. So, I mean, really, it's fun to kind of have these conversations with you.
I 100% agree. I've been loving this.
Yeah.
It's been really great. And honestly, it brings me so much joy knowing that you're enjoying this. It just like so feeds my Enneagram 2 soul. Mine is also going to be something that has been bringing me joy lately. Mm-hmm. You guys, I've been reading.
I'm so proud of you.
And I've talked about this a lot on the vlogs, that I watch Sherry's love for reading, or I watch like Auburn's love for reading. People that like genuinely get lost in a book and it is life-giving and they love it. And I look at that, I'm like, man, I want that. Mm-hmm. But I just really have always struggled with reading. I've struggled with enjoying reading. And I'm reading a book right now called Station 11. It's my first book of the year. And I'm a little over halfway through it, I think. And there have been a few times that I remember thinking like, oh, I just want to go read. And I haven't had that feeling in a long time.
Yeah.
So I've been loving reading. Yeah.
I think it's important to point out, and this is just totally, and again, this is how my brain works. And so I'm going to, there's going to be times like as I'm thinking of things, I'm new ideas will come to me.
Totally.
And this is, I think, a good platform to just say them.
It's a great platform.
I don't think that you have to enjoy reading.
Oh, interesting.
There are other things that you enjoy doing that I don't.
Yeah.
And I think that's okay. Like, you have your things and I have mine. And so you can kind of have like a longing, like, I wish that I enjoyed sports the way that you do. Mm. I know how much you love watching them. You get into the games, you like get invested in the players, you like, I wish that I had that level of enjoyment over sports, and I just don't.
What a good way to put that. And honestly, that is, even hearing you say that, that's freeing to me.
Right. And like, I can watch sports with you. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to care about it like you do. And I'm probably going to be reading while you're watching sports because I care about that more. Right?
You're exactly right.
And I mean, I think that's okay.
That's a really good way to put it. And that is that, I don't want to say it lets me off the hook, because I never felt like I was on a hook. I feel like I'm on a hook I've put myself on.
Right. Like, I don't ever want you to feel like you have to like reading the way that I do.
Yeah.
I want you to give me the space to enjoy reading the way that I do.
Absolutely.
And you do.
Yep.
But I don't think that you have to enjoy it the way that I do.
Well, I have been enjoying it this year.
Good.
And that's been bringing me joy, at least with this book.
You're almost halfway done with the book.
I'm almost halfway done with the book.
I've already finished 3.
Okay. That's rude.
But you have watched more sports than me.
I have watched more sports than you. So win-win.
Right.
So friends, that's what's been bringing us joy with my Enneagram 2 questions. I feel so much shame around this right now.
You don't have to feel shame.
Oh my god.
I think that it's healthy for me to really like have to make a decision.
Yeah. And
like figure out I mean positive things, because I can go down dark rabbit trails real easy.
Yep.
But because it's just a muddy mess in my brain. But I think it's good for me to focus on happy things.
I will end this podcast by saying that something you just said reminded me of this. We could view our differences in personality as things to butt heads over, as things to argue over. And there are times that we do that.
Right, like we're just never going to agree.
But most of the time, I view our differences as real gifts to each other. Like, if there is a gift to me as a 2 with Sherry being a 5, right? Because I need sometimes that being to be brought back to reality.
Right.
And
because not everything has to be joyful and happy and fun.
That's exactly right. But then at times there's a gift to Sherry in having someone that's like an encourager and a helper.
Somebody who brings me out of the mire.
That's exactly right. And so honestly, I do feel like our differences yin and yang each other very well. I don't know if that's a term. I don't know if you can yin and yang something.
It's yin and yang. That's fine.
Whatever, Sherry. Oh man, such a 5 right now. But like, I think that it isn't how you look at it.
Right.
That we could say, oh, she's so different than me. How annoying is that? But at the same time, there's a gift to me in Sherry's personality, and there's a gift to Sherry in my personality, and there's a gift to our friends in my personality, and their personality differences are a gift for me if we take the time and if we're intentional to see it that way.
Right. And I think that some people will, like, you can find any kind of website saying that type 5 and type 2 should never, ever get married.
That's exactly
because they will just constantly butt heads. And I don't think that's true. I mean, we do occasionally, but...
What?
But knowing what the other person is and how they will receive things that we're saying helps us work that out.
Yep.
And I think that, I just think that it's important. I don't think that there's any type that should never, ever be with another type. I think that no matter what type you are, you can be with anybody if you know how to communicate to them.
That's exactly
right. And
right.
how to receive communication from them.
Yeah, find the gift in it. Because there is a gift.
Yes.
In your partner, in your friends, in your employer, in your employee. There's a gift to you in their personality type.
Right.
As long as you're willing to see that, and as long as you're willing to approach it in, if I went through life thinking, you know what, only 2s have value and are worthwhile, and forget everybody else because they're not compassionate, they're just jerks, then think of what I would miss out on, right? And so if you go through life saying that the people around me have something to offer me the way that God designed them, there's a gift for me in the way that God designed them and their personality. If you go through life like that, you start to see the beauty in other people rather than like focusing on the frustration of their personality.
Right.
There are things in Sherry's personality that frustrate me, and there are things in my personality that frustrate her. Those just aren't what we focus on.
Right, because there are parts of Adam's personality that I would love to possess.
Yeah.
And I could strive toward
same.
that. And I think that's healthy for me. I think it's healthy for humans to adapt and change and not just kind of become rooted in their ways.
Yeah, I completely agree. The different personalities, it's like painting with different colors, right? There's a beauty that comes from that in a relationship. So friends, there you go. Episode 3 in the books. What? This was a fun one. This was one of the ones we wanted to talk about from the very beginning of having this podcast conversation. When we talked about doing this, we knew we wanted to do Enneagram, and gosh darn it, we did. We did. So thanks for listening. We appreciate you guys sticking with us.
3 whole episodes.
3 whole episodes, Sherry. We are crushing it.
Yeah, we are.
So, you guys, we will see you on the next LeggLife podcast.